what a beautiful day. I don't think I've ever been into this part of Florida before. Who knew they had such wildlife and nice trees and everything? This is great. What was that? Dude, what was that? Oh my God. Holy crap. My mind's playing tricks on me. There's no way. There's no way. I hear something. Okay. It was just here. What is going on? I don't see anything. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh! Oh my God, no! No! Karl, what if I told you there are thousands of eyewitnesses? People who've never met each other. They're all over different countries, and they're all experiencing the same thing. The exact same creature they're seeing.
A creature that's anywhere from 7 to 10 feet tall, covered in hair, leaves footprints over a foot long, and somehow always manages to disappear before anyone gets a clear picture.
Yeah, tonight we're diving into cryptids.
The creatures that exist supposedly just outside what science has been able to prove.
Some are probably folklore, some may be mistaken identity, and maybe, just maybe, one of them is actually true.
I'm Karl.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back, everybody. Tonight we're talking about cryptids, and honestly, this has been one of our most requested episodes.
Yeah, because everybody has that one creature they swear is real, right? Some people say Bigfoot. Some swear they've seen the Mothman. Some are convinced there's something living in the deepest lakes on Earth. And then you've got Florida.
Yeah, and where apparently every swamp has something to hide and ruin your day, so.
Exactly.
For anyone new to the term cryptid, it's basically an animal or a creature that's been reported by witnesses, but hasn't necessarily been recognized by mainstream science. So it's different than a ghost, different than an alien, and supposed to be an actual living creature, which is kind of weird.
Right. If someone somewhere captured a Bigfoot alive, congratulations. It's no longer a cryptid. It's just really unfortunate that it can't be a zookeeper's problem.
Tonight we're covering 5 of the most famous cryptids, and we're actually going to start with the king of them all, Bigfoot. So if you've lived under a rock, you've never heard of Bigfoot, picture a massive ape-like hairy monster creature thing, 7 to 10 feet tall, anywhere between 5 and 1,000 pounds, depending on who you ask, covered in dark brown or reddish hair, walks upright like a human, leaves enormous footprints, and, hence the name.
And apparently has mastered the art of being photographed exclusively with grainy photos from the 1900s.
Which is actually impressive because we have these high-tech iPhones that, can capture planets, but for some reason we get this grainy footage of Bigfoot.
He's blurry. He's always blurry. That's his defense mechanism, Kevin.
And what's really interesting about this is this didn't start with modern Americans. This is actually kind of a traditional folklore with indigenous tribes. They've described Bigfoot as different sizes. They even use different names. Other tribes describe this as a wild man, and sometimes it would even cross paths with hunters.
Which is fascinating because these stories existed long before television, long before movies, long before anybody could just make something up for internet clicks, right?
Yeah, and the name Bigfoot actually took off in 1958. So, story has it, a construction crew working near Bluff Creek, California, kept finding enormous footprints around their equipment. One of the workers, Jerry Crew, had photographs taken of the tracks. The newspapers ran with the stories, and suddenly Bigfoot became a national sensation.
And years later, one family claimed those footprints were part of a prank. But by then, it didn't matter. The legend had already exploded.
Then actually came probably the most single famous piece of Bigfoot evidence. You've seen this before. On October 20th, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin are horseback riding through Bluff Creek. They claim they suddenly see a large hairy creature walking across a sandbar. Patterson jumps off his horse, grabs a 16 millimeter camera, and records about 1 minute of footage that everyone has seen by now.
If you've ever seen Bigfoot, you've probably seen this clip, right? The creature walks away, then briefly turns its head towards the camera before disappearing into the trees.
Yeah, and about 60 years later, people still argue about it. Some experts believe that, the body proportions looking like a man in a costume, and others say it is exactly that, a man in a costume. Nobody's ever definitively proven either side.
Well, here's where things get interesting. Depending on which database you look at, there have been well over 10,000 reported Bigfoot sightings in North America. Most come from the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Northern California, but sightings have been reported in nearly every U.S. state except Hawaii. Canada has hundreds. There are reports from Russia. Australia has the Yowie. Even parts of Asia has similar legends.
And the eyewitness descriptions are very similar. It's kind of eerie. So they talk about a huge hair-covered, strong odor giant with heavy footsteps, makes whistling sounds, which I didn't actually know about, wood knocks, long strides, and most witnesses say the encounter lasted only a few seconds, which honestly, if I stumbled across a giant 8-foot, 10-foot ape, I would probably go running in the other direction. It's pretty scary. And supporters, they point to the footprints, they look at the hair samples, there's audio recordings, broken trees, supposedly nesting structures, even thermal images.
And skeptics point out none of it is held up. Hair samples almost always come back as bear, deer, cow, dog, human, or something completely explainable. No verified bones, no confirmed DNA, no body, no living specimen.
Which raises the biggest question. So how can something supposedly exist in breeding populations and yet almost no physical evidence exists?
Here's why Bigfoot refuses to die. Because every few months, somebody reports another sighting, another footprint, another strange sound in the woods. And unlike ghosts, Bigfoot doesn't require you to believe in the supernatural. It's just an undiscovered animal.
And science has discovered surprisingly large animals before, so this isn't anything new. And there's the mountain gorillas that weren't discovered until 1902. There's also the giant squid, which is kind of a more larger mythological creature. That wasn't even photographed till 2004.
Well, the question is, could something as large as Bigfoot stay hidden in North America in 2026? That's where most scientists say probably not.
Yeah. So, Karl, final verdict here. Real misidentified bears, hi critter, or the greatest campfire story ever told?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, to be honest. I believe people are seeing something. Now, whether that's bears standing upright, optical illusions, or human brains trying to make sense of something unexpected, I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think there's some breeding population of giant primates roaming around North America.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much with you. I would love for Bigfoot to be real because honestly, that would be one of the coolest scientific discoveries of all time. But most extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. So after decades of searching, we're still missing that one piece of undeniable proof.
Although if Bigfoot is real, he's officially undefeated against trail cameras. However, there have been accounts of these sightings of Bigfoot where there's missing time and flashes of blue light and people can't recollect what happened, and all of a sudden hours have gone by. So could that mean that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being? I think that could be a pretty interesting theory there. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think about the last show we did when we're talking about the Men in Black. This is eerily similar when there's some sort of alien activity. The Men in Black show up and they get the neuralizer and zap. They're flashing lights and you can't remember what just happened. So it begs the question, or it goes deeper, where if the Men in Black are real, have they somehow been involved in these Bigfoot activities or these cryptid activities?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So coming up, we're headed to Scotland, where something may or may not have been swimming beneath the surface for the last 1,000 years. What could that be? Who knows? What do you think it is? You don't care.
Critter's like, I'm just here to look good and hang out.
If Bigfoot is the king of the forest, then the Loch Ness Monster must be the king of the seas, of the oceans. It's definitely the... Oh, queen, excuse me.
Get your genders right.
I'm so sorry. So if Bigfoot is the king of the forest, the Loch Ness Monster is the queen of the lake.
Now, unlike Bigfoot, which could theoretically be anywhere, Nessie supposedly lives in very one specific place, Loch Ness, a freshwater loch in the Scottish Highlands. And this isn't just some tiny pond at all. It's about 23 miles long, roughly 1 mile wide at its widest point, and reaches depths of nearly 750 feet. In fact, Loch Ness holds more fresh water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. So if something wanted to stay hidden, that's actually a pretty good place to do it.
So the legend really exploded in 1933. A couple named George and Grace Spicer were driving alongside Loch Ness. They later claimed a huge creature crossed the road in front of their car before disappearing into the water. George described it as having a long neck, a bulky body, and moving with what he called a rolling motion. The story made newspaper headlines throughout Scotland, and almost overnight, people began looking at the lake differently.
It's amazing how one story changes everything. Before that, it's just a lake. After that, every ripple, every floating log, every wave could suddenly be Nessie.
And throughout the 1930s, sightings poured in. Tourists, locals, boaters, fishermen. People claimed to see humps, long necks, dark bodies, and something surfacing briefly, but then disappearing just quickly. Today, there's been well over 1,000 reports, and everybody's saying different things associated with Loch Ness. Now, this doesn't mean they're all credible, far from it actually, but it does explain why the mystery refuses to disappear. So probably the most famous image ever taken, never associated with Nessie, is something called The Surgeons. It was published back in 1934. It's a black and white photo. We've all seen it. It appears to show a long neck rising from the water.
Right.
So for decades, it was considered the definitive proof that something mysterious actually lived in Loch Ness.
And honestly, if you grew up before the internet, you've probably seen this picture somewhere. It's the Loch Ness photo.
Yeah, and back in 1994, this was actually revealed as a hoax. So what it was a toy submarine with a long neck, something fake attached to it. And, the person that was actually using that said, yeah, this is totally fake. This is made up. So that wasn't revealed until decades later, obviously.
Which had to be one of the most disappointing admissions ever, right? I mean, imagine waiting 60 years to find out you've got fooled by a bathtub toy.
So it's funny because even still, that really hasn't stopped people from trying to find the truth. They're still looking. So over the decades, researchers have used sonar, underwater photography, submersibles, drones, even environmental DNA testing. One of the largest efforts actually happened back in 1987. So this was something called Operation Deep Scan. 24 boats lined up across the width of the loch using sonar. And they also actually saw some unusual readings that were detected, but nothing conclusive. So there was no monster, there was no Nessie, right. Nothing definitive, of course.
Well, then in 2018, scientists collected hundreds of water samples to study environmental DNA. Basically, every living thing sheds tiny bits of genetic material into the water. Fish, plants, bacteria, everything. If there is a giant unknown reptile swimming around, you'd expect to find some evidence.
Yeah, and the results actually came back from the DNA. So thousands of organisms, lots of fish, birds, humans, dogs, even plenty of eels, but no evidence of a giant reptile. No plesiosaur, no unknown monster. Sounds kind of like Bigfoot a little bit as far as the findings.
Precisely. So if it's not Nessie, what are people actually seeing, right? I mean, some scientists think it's floating logs. Others point to unusual wave patterns, large fish, swimming deer, otters, or simply optical illusions caused by the way light reflects across the loch.
One of the more interesting theories involves large European eels. So Loch Ness has plenty of them. You know, they're not enormous. They're not like prehistoric dinosaur large, but there's still plenty of them, and certainly big enough to surprise anybody.
Especially if you only catch a glimpse from a few 100 feet away. Your brain starts filling in the blanks, right?
Yeah, definitely. One of the most popular theories and ideas is that Nessie is somehow a surviving plesiosaur, a marine reptile that lived alongside the dinosaurs. It's a fun theory. There's just one problem. Actually, several problems here. So
Right.
Plesiosaurs, first of all, are saltwater animals. Loch Ness is freshwater. The lake itself only formed after the Ice Age, and that was about 10,000 years ago, long after plesiosaurs went extinct, and that was roughly 66 million years ago. And if a breeding population existed, we'd probably have found some more blurry photographs by now.
Plus, if one somehow survived for 66 million years, it deserves privacy at this point, right? Leave it alone. It's earned it.
Despite everything, despite all of that, people still travel from all around the world. They want to see Nessie. They want to get a close-up shot. The legend has become really the biggest thing of Scottish culture.
Right.
It brings in millions in tourism, first of all. There's a museum, there's boat tours, there's observation points, and still people submit new sightings every single year, whether it's real or not. And Nessie has become something bigger than a cryptid, actually. It's become more of Scotland's identity.
Exactly.
So is there anything living in Loch Ness that science hasn't discovered?
Something undiscovered, maybe. A giant prehistoric lake monster? I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a perfect combination of a huge, mysterious lake, human imagination, and 80 plus years of people wanting to believe.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty of strange things in our oceans. That was one of my theories about aliens, that they live underwater. So there's definitely a lot out there, certainly lakes, and there's certainly things that have not been documented. But if there was a population of 30-foot monsters living in Loch Ness, I think modern sonar, DNA something, a decade of research would have given us something other than just strange, blurry photos by now.
Right. Still, though, if I'm on a boat in the middle of Loch Ness and something bumps the hull, I'm leaving. I'm not sticking around to find out whatever science got wrong.
Well, coming up next, we're headed to West Virginia. So this is a far departure from Scotland. It's one of the most strangest and honestly one of the most creepiest encounters ever reported. A creature so bizarre, people still argue over what they actually saw. The Flatwoods Monster.
All right. We're about to take a hard left turn because unlike Bigfoot or Nessie, the Flatwoods Monster doesn't really fit into one category. People have called it a cryptid, an alien, a demon, even some kind of interdimensional being. And honestly, after reading the reports, I can understand why.
Yeah, this is one of those stories where no matter what you think happened, something definitely scared a group of people. The story begins on the evening of September 12, 1952, in the small town of Flatwoods, West Virginia.
Around 7:15 p.m., several boys were outside playing football when they saw bright objects streak across the sky. They described it as fiery, orange, leaving a trail behind it. The object appeared to come down a nearby hill belonging to a local farmer. Naturally, being kids, Their first thought wasn't, maybe we should call someone. It was, let's go find it.
Yeah, and of course it was, because children have absolutely zero survival instincts.
Precisely. Seriously, if I see something crash out of the sky, I'm walking in the opposite direction. So the boys grabbed one of their mothers, Kathleen May, along with another young boy and the family's dog. Together, they headed toward the hill where they believed the object had landed. As they climbed, they reported noticing a strange mist, almost like a fog, although with a strong metallic smell. Some witnesses later described it as something similar to burning metal. Others compared it to sulfur.
Which already sounds like the beginning of every horror movie ever made. Do you smell that? Nope. We're leaving. I'm gone.
As the group reached the top of the hill, their dog suddenly ran ahead. Moments later, it came sprinting back, terrified. Then they saw it. According to Kathleen May, a towering figure roughly 10 feet tall, its face, or what appeared to be its face, glowed a bright reddish orange. It had large, round eyes that seemed to emit greenish light. Its head was described as being shaped almost like an ace of spades, or a hood. Its body appeared dark, almost black, covered by what witnesses described as a metallic-looking skirt or robe. And instead of walking, some said it appeared to glide.
Yeah, and if you're trying to invent the creepiest thing imaginable, congratulations. Mission accomplished. It's great.
I'd say so. So according to the witnesses, the creature suddenly made a loud hissing sound. Then it seemed to move forward toward them, not running, not charging, just advancing. The entire group panicked. They turned, they ran back down the hill as fast as they could.
Which, again, the correct decision. I don't think anyone in history has ever said, you know what, let's go just investigate this giant 10-foot monster thing making hissing snake sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
News spread almost immediately. Police arrived. Reporters showed up. Military personnel were reportedly seen in the area shortly afterward. Some witnesses complained of nausea, vomiting, throat irritation, and burning eyes. One newspaper even reported lingering odors at the scene the following day. Now, whether those symptoms came from fear, exposure to something in the environment, or something else, nobody knows for certain.
Why do all these monsters smell so bad? Like, it's pretty offensive. You're scary looking, but you also smell like, I'm not just leaving you just because you're scary looking, like you smell bad. I'm going. So, right. And that's kind of where, and this is where the story breaks into two camps. One side believes they have encountered an unknown creature, possibly extraterrestrial, possibly something we've never classified. The other side says this actually is a fairly reasonable explanation. There's something to this that can be explained.
Right. So according to several investigators, including astronomers who looked into the event, the bright object seen in the sky was likely a meteor. In fact, there was documented meteor activity over the eastern United States that evening. So that explains the object, but what about the monster that these people saw? Believe it or not, the leading explanation is a barn owl.
So barn owls, they actually appear surprisingly large, okay? They have these pale, heart-shaped faces anyway, so it can be mistaken. Especially when illuminated by flashlights at night, they can actually reflect brightly. So if they're perched on a tree branch, with leaves hanging around them, it's possible that the silhouette actually appears larger than it is. Now, if everyone's already scared, if they already believe they just saw something crash and land from space, that just makes this 10 times more terrifying.
Add darkness, fog, adrenaline, a little imagination, and suddenly you've got one unforgettable encounter. But believers aren't convinced. They point out that multiple people described essentially the same creature. Not one witness, an entire group. The descriptions remain remarkably consistent over the years. Some researchers also question whether an owl could explain the reported smell, the hissing, or the physical symptoms afterward.
And that's really what keeps this case alive, because the owl, it explains a lot. So that theory holds up to a degree, but it doesn't explain everything, at least not to everyone's satisfaction.
The Flatwoods Monster has become one of America's most recognizable cryptids. It's appeared in documentaries, video games, comic books, television shows, and even has its own annual festival in West Virginia. Not bad. For something that may or may not have been an angry bird.
So you've talked really in great detail about this, about the encounter and people's accounts of what happened. So what do you think actually happened at that night in 1952?
Personally, I think everybody absolutely experienced something. I don't think they invented the story here. Memory is strange, right? I mean, especially after a frightening event, the meteor is well supported. I mean, the owl theory, plausible, but there's still enough little details that make me hesitate before saying case closed here. Also, these people that witnessed this thing, a lot of them died from cancer too.
Really?
Did you know about this?
No.
I mean, we're talking about throat cancer, lung cancer. So this gas that this thing emitted obviously had some type of horrible, fatal effect on most of these people that saw this thing back in 1952.
Yeah, and it makes you kind of think, is this man-made? Because we don't ever hear about any sort of animal or monster, even in theory, that just emits something that automatically you get cancer from. So it's a group of people, and now all of a sudden they're stricken with these horrible diseases just from this one encounter. Very strange.
It really is bizarre. And obviously these people saw something that scared the hell out of them. And an owl, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they really did see something that night. And this thing is definitely nightmare fuel.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of those mysteries where every explanation leaves a couple of unanswered questions. Could it have been a combination of events? You mentioned the meteor. You mentioned an owl, panic, memories becoming stronger over time. So do I think that they met a 10-foot owl in the woods? Probably not. But I also understand why this story has survived and kind of taken on a life of its own.
Because whether it was an owl, an alien, or something we'll never fully explain, there's one thing for sure. If my dog runs back looking terrified, I'm listening to the dog, okay?
In this case, the cat.
Right.